this, which is unbelievably the 20th Firestarter Forum. I can't believe that. I don't know. We just had this vague idea 18 months ago we'd start doing these, and we're now on number 20. So today's topic is one that came out of last month's forum, as is increasingly the way. Actually, we're gonna talk about this very interesting subject of balancing profit with purpose. We're really pleased. We've got a whole load of new people here today as well. So if this is your first forum, thank you ever so much for joining us. I think we've now got somewhere touching 200 people who've been on these forums over the last 18 months or so. So it really is an excellent network, an excellent group of people. So please do keep coming. Please do tell people about it. More the merrier at any point. So let's have a bit of a run through of what we're going to do. So I will just ever so quickly set the scene. This is a topic that's quite, some people are quite familiar with it. Some people it's quite new to. So we're going to start with some early polls just to get a bit of a feel for where people's heads are, what people's level of understanding is. And then thankfully, we're then going to get an expert on the subject, Danielle Thompson, to talk to us about it for 10-15 minutes. Once we've done that, usual type of format, we'll go into breakout sessions where we'll have groups of 3, 4, 5, 6 people in a session, give you an opportunity to talk about what you've just heard, your own views on it. And then we'll do some more polls. Hopefully we now know a little bit more about it before going into one of our favourite slots, the 5 minutes with, a slot where we get a forum regular and ask our good friend Dave Harries to interview them for, imaginatively enough, 5 minutes. And today it's Irene Bisset from National Pride. And very, very relevant to today's topic as well. And then we will we'll just have a general open forum conversation to take us through to the end at about 10:30. So that is the plan. Let's get on with it. We start just with a little bit of Zoom etiquette, just so we all know what's going on. You should have been brought on mute. It's great to see faces, so please, if you can get video on, that's fantastic. We've also set up this view that you should be seeing at the moment is the speaker view. It's been forced on you. If you change to gallery, then that's fine, but the best view for the forum is speaker view. You don't need to do anything for the breakout sessions. You'll just end up in those. You'll be whisked into those. If you are invited into the final conversations, will bring you up on screen. You may need to unmute yourself at that point. And then really, please, let's try and make this as interactive as possible. So as we go through, any questions that you want to get raised at the end, please do stick them in the chat. Matt Wheeler will be managing the chat. So either, well, I just put them in the open chat or send them directly to Matt. And also just any comments, any conversation, any points, please just do put them in the chat as we go along. So let's get on with it. So we're gonna talk about a topic that may or may not be familiar to you. The stuff around the side of this slide, those kind of topics, governance, workers, community, environment, customers, I think are topics that people feel comfortable with, but actually understanding the principle of certification is perhaps foreign to quite a lot of us. So we're just going to start with some general questions to get a feel for your level of understanding with this. So we've got 3 simple polls. So these will be coming up on your screen, or the first one will be coming up on your screen any second now. And the first poll is, how important is it for your business to focus on more sustainable strategies? And 3 simple options, everything from very important, it's right up there at the top of our list, through to it's important, but we're not as good as we could be, down to it's not something we're really focused on so far. So if you could vote away, we'll just keep a bit of an eye on it, just to get a feel. And we're about halfway through the voting at the moment. And just a few more to come in. I should do some hold music whilst this is happening. Okay, I think a couple more people left to vote. And then let's just have a look at the result from this one. And probably not surprisingly, as is often the case with these polls at this stage, we've got a pretty good spread with kind of the middle ground sort of just slightly nudging it. So okay, so that was the first one. Poll number 2 is a little bit more technical. And this is potentially a trick question, so don't trip over yourself straight away. So how much progress do you think you've made towards achieving your ESG goals? And you can see the bottom option is nothing. I don't even know what ESG goals are. So if that is you, don't be embarrassed. And then downwards from the top, everything from a lot. We've got loads of initiatives in progress. Some, but not as much as we'd like. Not much. We've talked about it, but not really done anything yet. Okay, good to see people aren't afraid to own up to not knowing what we're talking about. That's an excellent trait in everybody. As somebody said to me earlier, don't be afraid to ask the questions that nobody else is happy to ask. So, right, okay, so we have done well. Yes, so good. It looks like everybody is going to have an educational experience today. So hopefully an hour from now you can reflect on the last 60 minutes of your life and say, I have learned something. Okay, and then the final poll is similar, actually. What is your current level of understanding around this concept of B Corp accreditation? So we've got everything from I'm fully aware of what it is and why it's important, to I've heard of it but don't really know much about it, I've no idea, and it's not really of any interest to me. I really hope that nobody's going to put it's not really of any interest to me, because you're on the wrong gig probably. Let's just see. Please nobody put that now, and please no jokers put it just to make me feel embarrassed. Firestarter people, that is at you. Okay, so perfect. Thankfully, we are in a good shape here. So again, as you would expect, we're probably tending towards the middle ground. People have heard of it, but they don't really know what's involved, which means that we are perfectly geared up for this, because it is indeed the topic of today. So one thing we often can't do is get rid of that window for you. It's pretty well the only thing we can't do. So if you've still got the poll window in the middle of your screen, it's on you to close it. We can't do that for you. But what we are going to do now is move on to our guest speaker. So I shall just tell you a little bit about her before we say hello. So we're really delighted today to have Danielle Thompson as our guest speaker. She is the founder of Sustainably, where she works with mainly small and medium-sized companies to help them build business and operating models that balance profit with purpose. She set up the business after being inspired by her stepchildren, who have grown up in a world that feels fair, kind, diverse, and environmentally considerate, which is great. She realized that the current normal working world doesn't always reflect those values, and so she set on a mission to change that. She now uses her experience from across the fields of supply chain, customer strategy, employee engagement, and change to support companies work towards B Corp accreditation, regardless of size, sector, or starting position. So I am absolutely delighted to welcome you, Danielle. So hello to you. Here you are. Very nice to see you. How are you enjoying this hazy autumn morning?
Well, apparently it's going to be a nice rest of the week and weekend. So
well, I'm going away for this weekend, so I'm crossing my fingers that the rain's going to stop. So really great to have you here, and I know you've got a really interesting presentation for us. So I'm gonna hand over to you and leave everybody in your capable hands for the next 10, 12 minutes or so. So over to you.
Okay, lovely. So yeah, thanks, Chris. As we said, my role is really to help organisations understand how they can balance profit and purpose, really focusing on SMEs. And so today I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what that looks like, some of the macro drivers that are facing that, and try and demystify B Corp and specifically how it applies to SMEs. So by the end of this session, so what we're going to talk about is a little bit about the business case behind sustainability and purpose. We're also going to look at B Corp specifically, and like I say, how it offers a solution for SMEs to how they react to some of those changing macro drivers that are happening in the landscape at the moment, and then specifically some of the actions that you can take in your own business in order to start this journey. But to start off with, why are we even talking about the need to be a force for good? What's driving that? And what I've done here is I've just pulled out some of the high level strategic drivers that are happening at the moment in the business landscape, and what is driving this need to balance profit and purpose. So you can see there, customers are expecting more. Customers are expecting businesses to both be high quality, to be quick and speedy, to be convenient, but they're also expecting organisations now to be ethical and responsible, and they're willing to vote with their feet when that isn't the case. It's clear that government is not going to take action quick enough to address the climate crisis, and so again, society is looking to business to be the driver of that change and to take action in order to help us address those issues. This is already happening anyway, but the pandemic has accelerated it. The attitudes to work have changed. People expect now to be able to work from home. They expect flexible working. That work-life balance has changed beyond all recognition, and it's only going to carry on moving in that direction. Similarly, in the workplace, diversity, especially at the top tables and at board level, is no longer optional. You are now, and it's only going to be increasingly the case, if you have an all-white male board or top leadership team, increasingly that is being frowned upon and will be seen negatively by potential employees and customers. So being diverse and embracing diversity is no longer optional where it perhaps has been in the past. From an investor's point of view, they're increasingly looking at ESG measures, and for people who didn't know what that meant, essentially that's environmental, social and corporate governance. So it's essentially saying that you are thinking about your stakeholders in how you run your business, and that is increasingly becoming a more important factor for businesses, for investors when they're looking to invest in businesses. And then finally, that point that Chris alluded to in introduction, the new generation, the kind of workforce of the future, have grown up in a world where they expect fairness, equality, purpose, environmental consideration. And so they expect their places of work to represent those values. And that's not always the case. But as they become a bigger proportion of the workforce, they will expect that in the companies that they work for. So that's kind of at very, very high level, some of the shifts that are happening that are driving businesses to look at this new way of working. But the business case for operating in this way, in a sustainable and purposeful way, is also very compelling. And you can see here, I've just grabbed a load of stats. There's loads where these come from, and various people, Kantar, EY, Harvard Business Review, all sorts of people have done lots of work in this space. But you can see there that the stats around running a purposeful business stack up from a financial point of view, but also whichever way you look at it, whether it be from employees, for customers, for society, but again, from a commercial perspective, it's clear that this is a compelling strategy, that it can really help your organisation grow and attract customers and talent. So, like I say, there's loads of stats out there. This is just a handful, but and I think most people understand that, and it's compelling. But I guess it's about what can you actually do in your business in order to move to this better way of working. And one model that we talked about at the beginning, and one you can use to help you with this, is called B Corp. So for those who aren't familiar with it, B Corporation is a global movement that was set up to really, provide a framework for this new way of working, this new breed of business. And it's all about balancing a profit and purpose. So being a commercially driven organisation, a profitable organisation, but having purpose and stakeholders at the heart. So to become a B Corporation, part of it is around all B Corporations have legally changed their Articles of Association or their governing documents to say that they will consider stakeholders as well as shareholders in their decision making. And that's a real key change. It's baking it in to your organisation and into how you as an organisation operate. Even if you were to sell the company, it's still within your legal governing documents, which is why that's a key part of the B Corporation accreditation. But the actual scheme itself is a process where a business can work through in order to meet the highest standards of environmental and social consideration. And the way that's tested to go through the B Corp accreditation is through working through something called a business impact assessment. And what I've done here is to just try and help explain what the BIA, the business impact assessment, is all about. So like I say, that is the crux of B Corp accreditation. It's an ongoing journey, and B Corps are required to recertify every 3 years. But within the actual assessment itself, it's broken into these 5 key areas. So there's about 120 odd questions across the whole impact assessment in each of those, across those 5 areas. And as you can see, it examines how you as an organisation perform against social and environmental perspective. So you can see, for example, it looks at environment, and it will look at what you do in terms of managing your environmental impact, how you measure your carbon emissions, your energy usage, what you do about water, what's your waste management process look like, how much you send to landfill, etc. So it asks you a load of questions around all those things with a multiple choice answers, and each answer attracts a certain level of points. You don't have to score highly across all areas, but you do need to in total reach the magical 80 points. So the whole kind of ethos and the whole principle of the assessment is you'll reach this 80 points overall. And different questions have different levels of points awarded to them. But to give you a bit of an idea, in order to, for a normal company, somebody who's kind of approaching this for the first time, you could expect to score around 40 points. So you can see the shift and the gap that's often in place between a kind of a normal organisation and somebody who's really striving to B Corp status. Once you've reached that magical 80 number and hopefully exceeded it, you then go through a process of verification, and that's when B Corp will ask you for evidence. You'll have a call where they'll talk you through your answers to make sure that you really have answered them properly, and you'll be asked to provide some evidence. What I would also say is this is a change in business model. So as I said at the beginning, this is about re-looking at how businesses operate. And so for most organisations, this is a strategic change. It's asking people to work in quite a different way. So it can take some organisations, two or more years to work through the whole assessment and reach that verification mark. But it's very much the start of a journey. You have to recertify every 3 years, and you are expected to improve year on year. You, as part of B Corp, you are also expected to report how your impact and how you're operating and how you're performing. But it's very much the start of a journey and start of that improvement journey. But as we can see from the stats we saw earlier, it's a strategy which is really worth it. It's very commercially beneficial. And as we saw from the poll, quite a few people understand what B Corp is, have heard about it, but maybe not understand some of the nuances. So I thought I'd just do a bit of B Corp myth busting. and go through some of the things I hear quite a lot that I think people aren't sure of, or potentially have misunderstood. So first of all, a myth I hear quite a lot is that it's only suitable for large businesses and corporates. So I think traditionally it has been a lot of big organisations, and often they're the ones that people refer to, the kind of names that we all know, Patagonia, Danone, etc. But actually anyone can become B Corp certified, as long as you're a profit-making, a commercial company. So, but you can be a single entrepreneur, or you can be a massive multinational. There's no limit in terms of size. What I would say though, specifically for SMEs, is it can sometimes feel overkill, some of the requirements, because it is suitable for all levels of organisation. So sometimes it can feel a little bit of a hammer to crack a nut at a very small, if you're very small, but it is helping you build a business which is kind of set up in this kind of new way of working. Another one I hear quite a lot is that it's only suitable for eco companies, or companies that are already, who are kind of in the sustainability space. And I think, again, historically that may have been the case. They were probably the first people to enter into this kind of way of working. But in recent years, a lot of the companies going through B Corp accreditation are your traditional companies, your organisations who are not from that kind of background, but they've decided to look at their operating and business model and to fit it much better into the B Corp way of working. And so you'll see a lot more of your kind of normal companies going through B Corp. Another one is around paying to complete the assessment. So the assessment, as I've talked about, is the kind of bulk of B Corp and is kind of the framework that, if you like. You don't need to pay to complete the assessment at all. So anyone can create an account online and start the assessment process, or start filling in that questionnaire. You only pay when you actually submit, and it's about 350 quid, I think, to submit. But up until that point, there's no fee. And if you wanted to, you could never submit. You could use the assessment as a business planning tool, a way of understanding give you ideas as to what you can do in your business, even if B Corp isn't something you want to do at all. There's no fee for that, and there's no kind of pressure to submit at all. It's just a really good tool to use. Another one I think which often can put people off is that you need to have sustainability expertise to complete the process. So B Corp itself is quite complex. There's a lot of pieces to it, and some of it can be quite technical. But what is brilliant, I think, about the whole process is one of the principles of B Corp is its openness and its transparency. So lots of information is available online for free. And so there is no reason why, with a little bit of effort and a bit of research, anyone can't work through that assessment. There's lots of tools, there's lots of resources, there's lots of links. So although some things can at first sound a bit odd, with a little bit of digging, the resources are there to help. So you don't need a kind of technical background in environmental science, for example, to work through the assessment. And then one which made me laugh, I heard last week. So somebody said to me, well, everyone's doing it, so it must be really easy. So, and I understand why people might think that. So it is, B Corp is talked about a lot. It's very out there. It's very public, and a lot of people are talking about it. But that can give the impression it's easy. So first of all, there's I think it's about 450 B Corps in the UK at the moment, something like that. And there's about 3,500 around the world. So if there's only 450 in the UK, clearly not everyone's doing it. It's actually a very, very small proportion of companies in the UK who have achieved B Corp accreditation. Many more will be working through the assessment. That's undoubtedly true. But it's certainly not easy. So if B Corp is something you're thinking about, it is a definite strategic change. So it is looking at how your business operates, and will be, in a lot of cases, fundamentally changing how you work with your employees, how you work with your customers, what you do in terms of the environment. It's very much guide you through it, but it is quite a big change for a lot of companies. And so that by its nature, then it's not easy. It's not a straightforward thing to do in terms of the amount of change it can involve. What I would say, though, like I say, it can take companies 2 years or more in a lot of cases to work through the whole assessment and to achieve the verification mark. But what it does do, as we saw from our stats earlier, is it does help companies attract better staff, attract customers, and it really does help organisations to meet the demands of this changing landscape that we talked about. So that's all very well and good and all very interesting, and B Corp is a brilliant tool, but especially from an SME perspective, it can feel quite overwhelming and it can be quite difficult to understand where do you even start. So what I wanted to do was just pull out a couple of things that an organisation, especially a small organisation, can do relatively easily in their own team and do in-house in order to at least start on this journey. So the first thing I've said there is to discuss with your team what's the wider purpose you're striving for. So B Corp and this whole kind of way of working is about balancing shareholder interests with stakeholder interests, and specifically organisations operating a way which is striving for more than just making money. So the question for you and for your team is, what is that wider purpose that you're striving for? What is it, aside from making money, that your organisation is passionate about? And the best way to do that is to talk to your team, get their input. And it could be things like diversity, it could be about social mobility, it could be about meaningful careers for employees, being a great place to work. But whatever it is, it's much more than just the profit side. What's that purpose that you and your team can really get behind and get excited about? The second one, which of course you'd expect me to say, is to go through the B Corp assessment. It is free. As I say, anyone can create an account. It's a monster, so it's quite a big piece of work. But what it does do and what it's great for is providing ideas and inspiration about what you can do in your business. Because it covers a whole business, you can go through that and you can see, okay, I understand what I could be doing in environment. I understand what I could be doing more with the community. And it essentially gives you what good looks like. So if you're sat there and you want to do more, but you don't know what that is, the assessment is a really great way to get those ideas. Even if B Corp isn't something you want to do long term, it's a great resource to use because it is considered best practice. So you're following a best practice model. And then the final one, and you can start small with this, but I would suggest introducing some KPIs into your organisation alongside your normal KPIs that you probably have around some of the areas of B Corp we talked about: community, environment, customers, employees, etc. What are a couple of KPIs you could introduce to help you move in this area, move closer in this area? So, and the reason for that is, if you start measuring some of these things, if you start measuring your energy emissions or your donations to charity, etc., the likelihood is it will be much more conscious in your business. You'll have more conversations about it. And so it starts that process of thinking in a more purposeful way. So that's kind of a summary of this way of working, why it's important, and a model that you can use to start that journey. And it'd be really good when we get into the breakouts to understand a little bit more around what you think you could do in your business to move to this way of working. So at this point, I'll hand over back to Chris.
Thank you very much, Danielle. That was excellent, very captivating. I'm sure I speak for everyone I say that. So, and superbly well structured as well, just to help us all. I feel thoroughly educated after the last 12 minutes of my life. So, thank you ever so much for that. And it has a bit of a ring of the I don't know if anybody's ever done the investors in people type process, where it's a similar process where you you start with an assessment, and you learn how where you are on a scale actually, and it very quickly tells you the direction of travel that you need to follow. But yeah, superbly interesting, and I can only imagine that it is very thought provoking. There've been, I don't know, you won't have spotted, but there've been a few questions coming through in the chat.
Okay.
So some of them you actually answered as you went along. So we can pick all of those up afterwards. So thank you ever so much, Danielle. Whoever gets you in their breakout, I imagine will consider themselves over. So excellent. So thank you so much. So what we're going to do now, we'll see you in a bit. We are going to go into our breakout sessions. Most people, a lot of people have done these before, but there's no harm in just kind of repeating what's going on. So we're going to put you in. We might put you in for just slightly shorter than 20 minutes, just so we keep on time. Don't worry, you'll fill the time. The single biggest complaint is we wanted the breakouts to be longer, but you're not allowed. So we will put you in the breakouts. If you end up with a fast starter in there, they will facilitate it. If you end up in a breakout without a fast starter, if somebody could just step up and make sure the thing keeps on track, that would be great. The couple of things to watch are over introducing yourself. We've known people use up the whole time getting around the introductions. Just quick and punchy is the way to go. And then keeping an eye on the time, just to make sure that everybody has a voice, nobody hogs the mic, etc., etc. If the facilitators or a willing volunteer could sort of just do a bit of a comprehension exercise of what the breakout has been talking about, because afterwards we would like you to direct those sort of conclusions to Matt Wheeler in the chat, which will allow us to structure the sort of the closing part of today's forum. So the topic for today is, as you can imagine, just really an extension of what we've just been talking about here. So how easy do you think it will be to start balancing profit with purpose in your business? So this topic of purpose is a really interesting one. What is the purpose beyond just making money of your business? Some people I know, and I'm thinking of people like Irene, who we're going to talk to later, have this very clearly in their DNA, but others less so. So how easy do you think it will be to start balancing profit with purpose in your business? And what have you learned today? And what are you actually going to do? This is just obviously to frame the conversation. You don't have to absolutely answer these, but it should help get you going. So enjoy it. We'll see you in probably just under 20 minutes or so. So have a great time, and see you when you get back. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I can only imagine that you've had some great conversations in your breakouts. I think I've said before, we always have a kind of a bit of a behind the scenes breakout as well, where we talk about what the subject of the day is, and certainly lots of interesting conversation been going on our end. So we will race through a couple of polls now, a couple of follow-up polls, just to see what we have learned or where our thinking is going. So the first one, which should be appearing on your screen ever so shortly, is a multiple choice. So there are lots of options on this. So just pick as many as you want. So the question is, after today's presentation, what things are most important for your business to focus on? And I will quickly read through them, but I know you can all read. But involve internal teams in decision making, establish a common purpose, implement green travel incentives, introduce employee wellness programs, reduce energy usage, increase diversity across all areas of the business, introduce more waste reduction initiatives, investigate formal charity partnerships, become more transparent in reporting ESG metrics. So please just populate as many as you wish. I would strongly imagine that it's going to be a real spread, because that's the reality of this, and people have got just slightly different emphases, I guess is the plural. Okay, we're doing well. Just give you a little bit more time. Okay. great. Let's have a little look. So yeah, as expected, actually, it's a pretty even spread. The getting your purpose straight is kind of featuring in there, and diversity, interestingly, as well. So yeah, as expected, perhaps a really good even spread, but certainly thought-provoking on many levels. And then we'll just do the final poll quickly now, which is like, how interested are you in pursuing B Corp accreditation for your business? So just a kind of a litmus test really as to what this has actually made you think. So it's got everything from very interested, I'm on it. As soon as I come off this forum, the first thing I'm going to do is get on with this. Quite interested, but need to find out more. Interested, but not ready yet. Keen on doing more, but not interested in formal accreditation. And it's not right for us. So yeah, very interesting. We're pretty well there with the poll now. So yeah, you can see the results hopefully, and it seems that everyone is pretty interested in it. So that's really really assuring to hear, and it would be really interesting to sort of review this group of people a year from now and see how many people have actually got themselves through this process. I think that could be a really interesting thing to do. So thank you very much for that. That's obviously just a bit of a precursor to our kind of more open conversation that we're going to have with a few people as we just close out in a few minutes. But before we do that, this is going to be interesting. I'm going to hand you over to my good friend Dave Harries for our regular feature, 5 minutes with. I'm not going to steal Dave's thunder. So over to you, Dave, for your 5 minutes with interview.
Thank you very much, Chris. Irene Bisset is going to be my guest today. She'll be on the screen in a second. Irene co-founded an organisation called National Pride that works with and coordinates a myriad of other organisations to promote sustainable housing, health and social care development. She's been in the construction industry, working in the area of risk assessment and insurance for many years, and founded National Pride in 2017, I think, to use her experience and skills to develop affordable and sustainable solutions for intergenerational communities throughout the UK. Irene, very warm welcome to 5 Minutes With. It's very nice to have you. I gave a little bit of background there, but tell me yourself how you arrived at where you are now, briefly.
Well, very briefly, I left the corporate world in 2018 and hooked up with other guys who literally we all came to very quickly the conclusion that in this country, in the UK, 3 massive sectors, healthcare, social care and healthcare, were all broken, and some things needed to change. Traditional didn't work anymore, and somebody needed to do something about it. And in our wisdom at that time, we thought we had enough experience and expertise and capabilities between us to do just that. And that is when National Pride was born. That was the back end of 2017, and we were incorporated in May 2018. So we're now nigh on, three and a bit years old, and we have moved on tremendously.
So tell us a little bit more about National Pride, because it's I was looking a little bit at the website after I knew I was going to be interviewing you, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. So tell us a little bit about it.
So National Pride is a community interest company. We like to describe ourselves as social entrepreneurs. We are facilitators and enablers, aka property developers. I hate calling us property developers because it's a term that has certain connotations, and property developers have certain reputations which are not always great and sometimes very well deserved. But effectively that is what we do, and it's all about repurposing and rejuvenating redundant land and buildings, but very much with a social mission. So it's all about economic regeneration, it's about social value, and it's about social impact. It is about making profit. Everybody needs to make a profit. It's not a dirty word. It's about making a bucket load of money, because we need a bucket load of money to actually develop out our projects. but it's about everybody, us included, working for a reasonable profit and then reinvesting excess profit back into the communities that we're creating and the wider social mission. We like to call it profit for a purpose, which is entirely aligned to what Danielle was speaking about earlier. And I could identify completely with everything that she was saying, and albeit I have registered and looked at the BCorp process, I am one of these organisations that after this morning will entirely get on top of that and go through the assessment process, because I think we hit most of the marks, and it's something that we definitely need to aspire to, is that accreditation.
So before I would actually like to ask you a little bit about the money if we have time, but before we do that, can you give us quickly a couple of project examples, the sort of things that you're working on right now?
Okay, so we have two developments on the way. They're both in Scotland. They are both ex-coalfield sites, so redundant land. One is in East Ayrshire, the first one that we acquired, which was in July 2020. It's 109 acres, and when we bought that site, we thought, wow, this is huge. And we had so many ideas for it that we quickly realised that we couldn't actually do everything that we wanted to on 109 acres. The concept for that site is what we call an ecotherapy wellness park, which is all about a development which is environmentally and ecologically friendly, and it's for the community and the local community and also the wider visitor community, tourism community, and it's all about health and wellness, getting back to nature, rehab, rejuvenation. We feel, and people are telling us now, that it is a unique concept, and we're very excited about it. Our second site, which we acquired in March this year, is in Fife in Scotland, and it's 1,000 acres. So it's 10 times bigger. And we will do the same thing as we are doing on the Barony, in terms of ecotherapy, wellness and health, but there will be a leisure element to that development as well. Hugely exciting.
Yeah, they certainly do sound very exciting. We've got a little bit of time left, about 25 seconds. So very quickly, tell me, how do you initially get the investors and the money for this?
So when we started out, we thought that we were looking for needles in haystacks. National Pride was self-funded initially for the concept. The two projects are funded by ethical investors that have backed us effectively. We now know that they're the lucky ones, having found us, and they are getting involved in these projects that we will replicate across the country. And actually our wider mission is to replicate internationally. We know that we have the funding to take these projects through planning. We know the development funding will be a blend of funding through institutional, high net worth, probably grant funding, etc. But the money that is out there is looking for good projects. We know that they'll be lining up at our front door to actually help us with these projects and more.
Irene, thank you very much for talking to us. I'm sorry we've run out of time. It's a good thing the counter stays at 0 and doesn't go minus, because otherwise they'd think I was totally unprofessional. But anyway, thanks again. It's brilliant talking to you. So interesting. And I'm going to hand you back now to Chris.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much to Dave and Irene. Absolutely fascinating. We were very fortunate to do some work with Irene and National Pride. And it really is a fascinating business. If ever there was an example of a business that had the right balance between profit and purpose, that is it. And I would also like to say, and I put this challenge out there to you, that Irene Bisset makes the most amazing breakfast in the world. John Keogh and I were very fortunate enough to do a meeting at her house once, and twice actually, and she makes the most amazing breakfast. So that's a challenge to anybody that ever hosts us in the future. That the bar is well and truly set. So right, okay. So now I am going to welcome Matt Wheeler onto the screen. So Matthew, hello, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good to see you.
We have got, yeah, likewise, nice to see you. 9 minutes we have of our lives to get through the next round of stuff. So I'm not going to talk. Over to you.
Okay, so there's as you can understand, lots and lots of sort of interest in this topic, and loads of sort of questions are coming up. So I've got some quick ones that have been fired up on the chat that hopefully we can get some quick answers from Danielle on. So if we can get Danielle on screen, that would be really helpful. So quick fire questions for you, Danielle. So,
Okay.
Getting to 80 points on BCorp accreditation, is it time limited, or can you take as long as you want?
Not time limited, take as long as you like.
Excellent. Okay. Are there audit templates available online? I think you mentioned there's lots of resources and support stuff available.
There's lots of resources. I'm not sure there's templates as such, but there's certainly lots of links, lots of redirection to things, and in the assessment itself, so it points you in directions of helpful resources to look at. So some of those by default will be sort of templates, but again, the whole kind of framework is essentially an audit template in itself. It takes you through sort of each section bit by bit.
Fantastic, excellent. And is the process independent, or are you benchmarked with other similar organisations when you're going through that process?
So you score yourself and you go through it kind of independently. The scores that different questions, the points allocated to different questions have been validated across a whole wide range of organisations, but they are sort of standard across the board. So you're not benchmarked directly, but by its nature, you are, the level to get to 80 points is basically saying you've met those higher standards. So by default, then it's been benchmarked in a way. You do, what I would say is, depending on your size and your level of environmental impact, you will get different versions of the assessment. So there's not just one version. There's, I don't know, the countless amount of different versions, because it alters slightly depending on your size. So if you're a much smaller organisation, the points allocated to you for different questions will be slightly different than if you're a big corporate, for example. So in that way, it's kind of a little bit comparable.
Excellent. Obviously, BCorp is what we've been talking about today. But there was a mention of some alternative ways that smaller businesses can kind of take these steps as well. I mean, is BCorp the kind of recognised standard, or are there other things that people could do that are slightly more suited to smaller businesses? Yeah. I know you said it's not just for larger organisations, but
absolutely, yeah. So BCorp absolutely is applicable to all organisations, but as I said, it can feel overkill for small businesses. Some certainly feel it's too much. So there's some equivalent, or some other examples might be there's a good business charter, which is a self-verification scheme, and it basically takes you through 10 commitments that you can make within your business to say, we will pay proper tax, we'll pay people properly, those kind of things, which is very specifically targeted at SMEs, and it's supported by the Federation of Small Businesses. There's another one called the Organisation for Responsible Business, which also has a certification and training scheme, which again is specifically targeted at small businesses. So it's almost a little bit of a ladder effect. You could almost start at some of these other ones, get the foundations in place, and then if you wanted to move to BCorp, then that would be another natural progression, but you'd probably find it easier because you've done some of those other things. So there's other things out there that are much more deliberately focused on SMEs, but often BCorp is the one that people know about, and it's kind of seen as a recognised standard.
Yeah, excellent. And I think this is a topic that came up in my group, which may have been common across the other breakout groups. But I think a lot of people have their own, not necessarily agendas, but areas of expertise where they want to focus on specific elements of this. So I think there's lots of people focusing on sustainability and environmental issues, but not necessarily addressing the diversity or the next generation side of things. And I think the challenge is joining the dots, isn't it? And kind of bringing it all together so that it's all parts of your business are focused on this. And I think again the general feeling in my group was that we're at very, very early stages in a process here. That I think the hope is that it will become business as usual, as you're sort of professing, and it will be just as health and safety is in a business. Then these issues will become normal for for businesses to operate by. And I guess the challenge is how long we think it will take for everybody to get to that stage. So that's the journey that we've got to go on, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point around I was just going to say about the different areas. So you can sort of be focused on one and to kind of really have a strength in one and do others in the other areas as well. But it doesn't mean you have to be brilliant at everything. You can kind of sort of focus on one area, but there is an expectation that you are generally good in other areas as well.
Excellent. And I think the other kind of expectation from my group was that it's actually it's almost going to be a generational change, and it'll be the younger generation coming through, mm-hmm. the younger employees that businesses currently have, and the ones that are going to become employees. Those are the people that are actually dictating this change to a degree, because these issues are much more important to them. They're values that they abide by, and they increasingly expecting organisations to abide by those values as well. So I've seen lots of press recently that it's a candidates market out there at the moment, and people are being able to effectively pick and choose what organisations they want to work for. So, and they're making those decisions based on a number of the issues that we're raising today. So hopefully, I think that will be where that change will come from, and businesses will be forced to do that.
So Matt, we're pretty well up on time. So is there anybody from the forum that is worth bringing in at this stage?
There was one interesting point that I was quite keen just to hear a little bit about. Was there's a chap called Luke Douglas Home who runs a number of businesses, sort of campaigning consultancies, he's keen on a future without rubbish, and campaigning against sort of plastic usage and reducing that sort of thing. So just it'd be great just to finish on that and see what you're up to, Luke.
Thank you. Yes, I suppose the main thing is a Future Rubbish program is run by the CIC, a Future Without Rubbish CIC, and it educates school pupils in Romania, in India, and in Oxfordshire, and it's growing, about the SDGs, about the circular economy, and its starting point is the so-called waste hierarchy, because regarding any waste stream, the main thing is just to reduce. That's what we try and get into everyone's heads. And my evangelical point is that I think that some environmental education must be integrated in national curriculums, and it's not at the moment, and this is a problem. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, sir. So I think we are, as always, we are always pushed for time. Thank you ever so much for that. Matt, I imagine that what we can do is bring together a whole load of the thinking that's come out of this today and get it out there in the follow-up. So we're bang on time. It's 10:30, so I'm going to say some real quick thank you. So Danielle, thank you so much for your contributions today. I think you've opened a lot of people's eyes. It was an excellent presentation and have left people with lots to think about. So thank you ever so much for everything you've done today. Big shout out to Matt and the rest of the Firestarter team for all the work they've done behind the scenes to get this forum functioning this month. Excellent work, everybody. Thank you very much. Dave and Irene, a really interesting 5 minutes. So that was 5 minutes with Irene. Thank you for your lovely comments in the chat as well, Irene. Very much appreciated. It was a real pleasure. And then finally, obviously, thank you very much to Paddy and Stephen for, I'm sure you'll agree, a superbly smooth technical delivery today. Excellent. Just before we round off, real final just bit of a request. If you have ideas for the next forum, please do shout them out, or the next couple of forums. Can be anything. So who you want to hear from, guest speaker wise, topics. There can be difficult topics, crazy topics, training topics, things that are big concerns to you. Just let us know. We really want to make these forums aligned to the needs of the audience. So without further ado, thank you very much. Please keep talking to us. Please keep coming. And we will see you all soon. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye. Have a great day.